issues about terms of public officials, that sort of apply to all of you all as well. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today deals with vacancies and terms of utility district commissioners, but I know that we have utilities in here that are not utility districts, so some of this will apply to you and some of it won't. I'd love to get an idea of who's here. So if you're with a utility district, raise your hand if you would. Okay, about expected, that's the majority. How about somebody that works with a utility authority? Okay, we have a few. Anybody that works for a county utility, a county board of public utilities? I knew Mark. Yeah, we've got several. So we'll talk about you all a little bit as well. So, um, but always for me, and of course, because I'm a lawyer, the beginning point is what what the legislature has said. So we're going to talk about the terms themselves, how long they are. We're going to talk about the beginning date of your terms, and we're going to talk about the ending date of your terms. Again, should seem very straightforward, but especially for utility district commissioners, the way that you have to get appointed can make things complicated. So, if you are a utility district commissioner, you should have a 4-year term, and that's it. Your term should be 4 years. We're going to talk a little bit about sometimes when the beginning and ending date of that 4-year term may be, but you should have a 4-year term, except when, for a couple of things I'll talk about. So, through the years, I've gotten a few calls, and somebody will tell me, well, my 3-year term ended. Like, that's not right. You don't have a 3-year term. Okay? 4-year terms if you're a utility district commissioner. If somebody tells you different, you need to go, Don said that's not right. Okay? A couple of exceptions. If you are originally appointed or elected to your seat, and as a result of the death or the resignation of a commissioner, then your original appointment is simply to fill out the term of the commissioner whose place you're taking. Or the legislature has provided something different. With utility districts, I'm not sure there is anything different anymore. There used to be with a couple of private acts, but I'm not sure. So, for all intents and purposes, your term is a 4-year term, except if you are appointed or if you're elected and you are replacing somebody due to death or resignation, anything other than the expiration of a term, then your initial term is only going to be to fill out the term of the person that you're replacing. Example. So, Commissioner Nick Newman's term of office is June 15th, 2022 to June 14th, 2026. 4 years. Oh, how did that get there? So, 4-year term. Okay. I was going to save this to later, but you know, a term of office has an exact date. It's not June of 2022. It's not 2022. Your term should have a beginning date and an ending date. A lot of times I'll ask people, send me, the terms of your commissioners, and I will get a month, May 22nd. That's not the beginning date of a term. If you don't know it, ask when you get back to the office what the beginning and ending date of your terms are. Okay? It's not May, it's a date. Okay? Note, and we'll talk a little bit more about the importance of knowing those. So we've got June 15th, 2022 to June 14th, 2026, 4-year term. So Nick Newman resigns November 30th, 2024. So the county mayor appoints Beth Hardiman to fill this vacancy on January 20th, 2025. Definitely. So what's Miss Hardiman's term of office? January 20th, 2025. That's the date she got appointed through June 14th, 2026. Okay. So if she happens to get reappointed, her next term is going to be a 4-year term. Okay. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the terms of other types of utility boards. You know, and it's understandable, you know, a lot of times I will get follow-up questions, or I will get a follow-up question from somebody that works with the utility that said, well, my commissioner came back and he said, you said, and sometimes that's accurate and sometimes it's not. Okay. So we're going to talk. I don't want anybody to go out of here thinking my term is a 4-year term if you're not a utility district. Okay. Because it may not be. So, but again, because everybody in here that works with the utility is a creature of the legislature, we're going to go through some examples of other terms of other types of utility boards. Okay. So here we go. County boards of public utilities. TAUD, Murray County Water System. MARC with TAS. County boards of public utilities have 3-year terms because that's what the legislature provides for. Okay. Um, we'll talk about their beginning. Utility authorities. They over the years, there have been several utility authorities formed across the state, and there will be more. And we can talk about why at some later date. There is a general statute that allows a county to create a water and wastewater treatment authority. Really, the only couple in the state that are that way is the Hamilton County Water and Wastewater Treatment Authority and the Wilson County Water and Wastewater Treatment Authority. They have 5-year terms because that's what the legislature provided for. There are several utility authorities that are been created in Tennessee by a private act of the legislature. So some of you all will know what that is and some of you won't. Our legislature, most of the statutes and the laws that they pass each year are public acts. They're going to apply to anybody to whom they apply across the state. However, the legislature does have the ability to pass legislation that just affects a particular group. There are several private acts that have been passed that have created utility authorities. Some of those are new. Some of those are utility authorities that used to be a part of a city or part of a county. Legislature created the authority, and that private act then controls everything about how the authority operates. So there's just 3 examples. The Anderson County Water Authority, and there's a gentleman here from the Anderson County Water Authority. 4 years, okay, just like utility districts. The Water Authority of Dixon County, they have 4-year terms, except there's one commissioner or one board member who has a 2-year term, okay? So again, it's not you all, I don't think anybody's here, but they got to keep track. We got one commissioner or one board member who doesn't have a 4-year term, they have a 2-year term. The Tullahoma Utility Authority, Scott Young is here. They have 5-year terms, except there's a 1-year term for an appointee by the mayor. Okay. There are a couple of general statutes that allow cities to create utility boards. There's one that I call the Municipal Water and Sewer Board. City has the ability to create the board to operate their water and sewer system. They have 5-year terms. There are several water and sewer utilities that are operated in connection with a the electric system or sometimes the gas system by cities. They created a municipal electric power board that originally operated the electric system, but were given power many years ago to also operate the gas system, water system, sewer system. They have 4-year terms, except there's an appointee by the chief executive officer, you know, and I left out the date, the years, but it's a different date. There are also some cities who actually have their utility board created in their charter. A utility, probably more than half of the cities in Tennessee are created by, again, a private act of the legislature. This one is just an example of the the city of Tracy City has in their charter the creation of their water and sewer board that's called the Tracy City Board of Public Utilities. Their terms are 6 years. Okay, so if you're a utility district, you can walk away and know our terms are 4 years. If you're somebody different, the legislature may have provided something different than a 4-year term. Okay, so again, I just do that to say it's sometimes you hear things and you think that applies to you because you're in the same business as somebody that's sitting next to you, may not be when it comes to terms of office. So again, if you are a board member and you don't know for sure what your term of office, you really need to find out, okay? Because it may not be 4 years. Okay, so we talked about the length of the terms. We're going to talk about beginning dates and ending dates of terms, okay? So we'll start with this example. Philip Combs' term ended on April the 30th of 2024. But the utility district let that date slip by and only realized in August that, oops, we forgot to get Philip reappointed as a commissioner. So they submit the 3 names to the county mayor on September 25th. The county mayor signs an order reappointing Mr. Combs for another 4-year term on October 2, 2024. So his term ended April 30th. He didn't get reappointed until October of the same year. So, when did Mr. Combs' new 4-year term begin? His new 4-year term began May 1st of 2024, the day after the end of his last 4-year term. Why? Okay, he wasn't appointed until October, but his term ended April 30th. When the legislature has provided that some kind of governing body has staggered terms, the courts have said term beginning dates need to maintain the staggering scheme that was set up by the legislature. So we're going to talk about a perfect utility district that did things right from the beginning. Utility district was created September 1, 1960. When a utility district is created, the order creating the utility is to appoint 3 initial commissioners. They are to have 2-year term, one's to have a 2-year term, one's supposed to have a 3-year term, one is supposed to have a 4-year term. Thereafter, all terms are supposed to be 4 years. So if you did it correctly from the beginning, a commissioner vacancy would occur every year except one, so you would be reappointing a commissioner each year to maintain the staggered intent of the legislature for utility district commissioners. Again, because they are 4-year terms, and we're going to talk about the ending date of the terms, in honesty, those terms should in fact have been from September 1, 1960, and that should have been the beginning date of every term moving forward. There's not a utility district in this state, unless you were elected maybe, that really has done this correctly. I represented several utility districts. Some would have two commissioners elected in the same year. You know, some commissioners would be elected in April, some would be elected in November. Okay. It's not easy to keep track of the process by which you have to go through to get appointments and the number of years it's been since you were created. Nobody has done this correctly. No big deal. Just try moving forward to know what the dates are of the term as it currently exists now and try to keep track. Okay. But so even though Philip Combs was appointed several months late, he was the incumbent commissioner. His term expired. He got reappointed. His 4-year term did not start from October later than he should have been appointed to keep and maintain the staggered 4-year term. Okay. So if you are reappointed late, your appointment, the beginning date of your appointment is not the date you are actually appointed by the county mayor if you are an incumbent. Your actually beginning date relates back to the ending date of your prior term to maintain the 4-year staggered scheme that the legislature set up. So, haven't done that, don't worry about it. There's not a utility district in here that's ever done it right. Okay. Just start now, from where you are, to do that. And we're going to talk, hopefully, about sort of the consequences of not doing that. So, again, that relating back to the ending term doesn't matter whether it's a new person is appointed or whether it's the existing commissioner that gets appointed to fill the vacancy. The 4-year term relates back to the end of the prior term. Okay, so that's beginning dates for terms. We're now going to talk about the ending date of terms of office. Okay, there are several different events that can happen. Yes, sir. Yes, the question was in the example I gave where a commissioner was appointed late. Is there any problem with the actions that were taken by that commissioner, in between the time of the term expiration and the actual reappointment? The answer to that is no. For utility district commissioners, the same statute that describes the procedure says that an incumbent commissioner continues to serve as a, quote, holdover commissioner until the next appointee is properly qualified and appointed. So really, by statute for utility districts, you continue to serve legitimately as a commissioner until the process to appoint to fill that vacancy occurs. My example was a few months. I can assure you I've dealt with people where that problem is 2 year, 5 years or longer. Fortunately, I'm able to say not a problem because by statute you're a holdover commissioner. You know, wreaks havoc on the 4-year term concept, but nevertheless, actions taken are still valid. So, and really the same thing is true if you're not a utility district. There really is a recognition by the courts that if someone is supposed to be appointed or elected, and I'm talking about not, general elected officials, that generally they're going to recognize that if no action is taken by the appointing authority, whoever's in office is still valid to serve. So like the Tennessee Board of Utility Regulation, if there's a vacancy and you're on that board and your term is expired, this same concept that the law doesn't favor an empty office, you actually continue as a holdover as well. For utility districts, it's outright stated in the statute that you serve as a holdover. So,
Don, in that scenario, if the period term expires, utility fails to nominate, does the county executive approving authority, if he so chose, and he knew it, could he appoint someone after the term?
yeah, I'm going to answer that question later. But the question is, what happens if the term expires of a commissioner? The county executive or the county mayor, depending on how your county deals with it, becomes aware of that. Does he or she have the power to make an appointment? The answer to that is yes, with a description we'll talk about toward the end. Okay. So, how your term in, term expiration, death, resignation, disability, failure to meet office qualifications, or for utility district commissioners, removal by the T-Board, or in the unlikely event some ouster suit is done with any public official, your term can end that way. So we're talking about term ending events and what happens. So in answer to the question that was just asked, that's the statute that I was talking about. You continue to serve as a holdover commissioner if the process has not been completed to properly elect either you or a new appointee. Okay, talk about that. Okay. If you have a commissioner that dies in office, obviously the date of death is the ending date of the term. The ending date of the term is important, especially for utility districts, because that starts the clock running. You have 60 days from the date of the death of a utility district commissioner to submit your 3 names to the county mayor to fill the vacancy. And again, we'll sort of address Anthony's question about what happens if you don't do that. So that's a date certain. Resignation. You can resign, as a utility district commissioner at any time. So, what's the date of your resignation? Well, generally, the date of your resignation is going to be the date you resign, unless you give it an effective date in the future. So, you write your letter today, I'm going to resign effective November 30th. Does the resignation have to be in writing? I mean, there's nothing in the law that says the resignation has to be in writing. It's best if it's in writing because then there's no question about the date of the resignation or in fact that it is incurred, but it's not required. So let's talk about an issue that can come up with a resignation. So we've got Commissioner Joe Cooper. He's been at odds with the other 2 commissioners and with the manager of the Orange Utility District for several months. Exasperated, Mr. Cooper submits his resignation the day after a contentious board meeting in May, and everybody is relieved. He's finally gone. 2 weeks later, Mr. Cooper changes his mind, withdraws his resignation in writing, and he shows up for the June board meeting. So the question becomes, is Mr. Cooper still a commissioner? Okay, he's resigned, but he's withdrawn his resignation before the next board meeting. Yes, a public official who resigns, that resignation can be withdrawn at any time until it's accepted by the Board of Commissioners, which has the responsibility to process to fill a vacancy. Generally, this does not cause any concern, but in this instance, it's a problem, okay? Because he's resigned and then he's withdrawn his resignation. But the courts are really clear that a resignation is not effective until it is accepted by the appointing authority. In this case, that's going to be the Board of Commissioners who initiates the process to fill the vacancy. Now, you all don't do this as a matter of course. So one of the things I want you to walk away from here is resignations by commissioners need to be accepted at the next board meeting. Somebody resigns, generally they mean, I don't want to be here anymore, and it's a non-issue. But, people can be contentious. And so what happens when this guy shows up at the June board meeting? Is he legitimate? Is he not legitimate? Okay. So again, a resignation can be withdrawn, you know, until the appointing authority has accepted it. For like a county board of public utilities or a utility board that's appointed by the county mayor or the city mayor, that resignation, you know, needs to be, has to be submitted to the appointing authority.
What if the county mayor accepted resignation?
Yeah. So his question is, what if the county mayor accepted the resignation? With utility districts, it's a little bit of a question because there's not an appointing person. There's the there's the Board of Commissioners that has to act to submit the names to the county mayor. So the courts are probably going to look to who initiates the action to, fill the vacancy, and that would be the Board of Commissioners.
But then the commissioner decides in the middle of the meeting,
Yeah,
and the board accepts it effective that day, puts it in the minutes, he's gone.
he's gone. So again, if a commissioner does that, you're not used to a commissioner, just saying, look, I'm going to resign. You need to put in the back of your head that, oh, we need to take action to accept that resignation. Okay. I remember been about 10 years ago, I was talking to a guy and they had a commissioner who was just giving them all kinds of crap. And he finally resigned. And so he called me, he said he's resigned. I said, did he put it in writing? No. But you're telling me he resigned? Yes. I said, when is your next board meeting? You make sure at that board meeting that you make a motion to accept the resignation, because he was just the kind that would withdraw it. So I may have introduced a new concept, but it's an important one. Can you call a special meeting just to accept it? You can. The only difficulty, and it's not, is when you have a special meeting and you're a utility district or utility board, you have to give the purpose of the meeting when you give the public notice. So if you're dealing with somebody that's contentious, I'd wait till the next board meeting. Because guess what? 95% of the time, this person's not going to understand this either. All right. So, all right. Failure to meet the qualifications of office. This one, it seemed like many years I never had a conversation about this one, but now I have this one occasionally. So I'm gonna run out of time if I'm not careful. So to be a utility district commissioner, you either have to live within the district's boundaries or be a customer. A customer means that you get a bill and you pay that bill regularly. So if you are a commissioner and you move your residence somewhere else and you are no longer within the district's boundaries and you're not a customer of the district, then the moment that you move, you are no longer qualified to serve. Okay. doesn't require action by the board because you're not meeting a qualification that the legislature has established. Okay, so if you become disqualified or one of your commissioners becomes disqualified from office because they move or they are a customer and then they become not a customer, if that's the basis upon which, they serve, the moment that they move, there's a vacancy. Okay. So you as the board need at your next meeting to start the process. Okay. Okay, utility district commissioners, and this is them only, you know, a few years ago, the Tennessee Board of Utility Regulation was given the authority to remove utility district commissioners from office. They do that by basically at some point having what's called a contested case hearing on the removal. Utility district commissioners, board members of a county board of public utilities or of a utility authority, just like any other public official, they can be ousted from office under a Tennessee public ouster statute. Very difficult process to go through, which is why you rarely hear about it, especially in connection with a utility board. So, just an info, the Tennessee Board of Utility Regulation can sort of begin this process of removing a utility district commissioner in three circumstances. One, if there's a filing for the removal of a commissioner or commissioners by 20% of the customers, that triggers the Tennessee Board of Utility Regulation to conduct a hearing on whether the commissioner or commissioner should be removed. Has such petitions been filed? Yes, probably 3 or 4 of them in the last 20 years. I don't think a commissioner has ever been removed as a result because the hearing has occurred and there's been no finding of removal. If the comptroller's office makes an investigative audit of your utility, that audit is given to the TBOR staff and that can trigger the beginning of a proceeding to remove a commissioner. If a utility district is under the jurisdiction of the TBOR for any reason, whether that be financial distress, water loss, or any of those things that you can come under them, that's also something that can be done. Okay. Again, so, you know, whoops. So the date on the vacancy, if that occurs, is going to be the date of the order of the TBOR that says, you are hereby removed from office. And if that's signed May 11th, 2024, that's when the vacancy occurs. Okay. Then you, as the utility district board, have to begin your process to fill that vacancy. Okay. So term ending dates, expiration of a term, it's going to be a date certain, the end of that 4-year period. Remember, resignation is going to be effective when it's given or the date, provided that, you accept it. The date of the resignation is not the date of the acceptance, it's the date of the resignation. You've just eliminated the ability of that person to withdraw the resignation. And then if you no longer qualify because you move out of the utility district's boundaries, same thing would be true for any other utility board. If there's a qualification that you live in a certain location or any other qualification, the moment that that's gone, there's instantly a vacancy in the office. So one thing that was passed 3 or 4 years ago, not seen it happen yet, but if, and this is a utility district, if a utility district commissioner is indicted for misconduct in office, then that commissioner is immediately suspended from office, meaning you are no longer able to serve as a commissioner, but it is a suspension, okay? And that suspension lasts until the disposition of the criminal proceeding or the expiration of your term whichever occurs first. Okay? So if the wheels of justice grind slow, which they do, may very well happen that your term may expire, you know, before things are ended and your term will end due to the expiration of your term. However, again, this is the scenario where you have been indicted for misconduct in office and there's a suspension in your ability to serve as a commissioner. The county mayor has the ability to make an interim appointment. That interim appointment lasts until either the commissioner's found guilty, then there's a vacancy in the office, or if the indictment is dismissed, the district attorney's office decides I'm not going to move forward with this, or the commissioner's found not guilty, then the commissioner immediately resumes office. Never seen that happen before, but it's only been there about 3 or 4 years. So I wanted to at least throw that one out there. Okay, sort of, we've sort of talked about terms of office, beginning dates, ending dates, especially for utility district commissioners. We're going to talk about sort of what happens when names are not submitted timely. Okay, there are about 10 utility districts who commissioners are elected by the customers, right? What I'm going to be talking about is probably going to be more of a scenario where, which is most of you all, where vacancies are filled by the submission of 3 names to the county mayor. County mayor chooses those 3 names. Okay. And as you all know, even before you get there, you got to put a notice in the newspaper that says, at our next meeting, we're going to select 3 nominees. You have the board meeting, you select the 3 nominees, you submit those to the county mayor. The county mayor has the ability to choose any of the 3. The county mayor can reject the first list, or the county mayor cannot act. All right, so we'll talk about that. So what happens when no names are submitted timely? When there is an expiration of a term of office, the board of the utility district has to submit the list of names at least 30 days before the term of office expires. So if your term of office expires September 30th, you're supposed to get your names to the county mayor, at least 30 days, beforehand. If there is a vacancy for any other reason, death, resignation, no longer being qualified, then you have 60 days from the date of the vacancy to submit your names to the county mayor. If the utility district board does not follow the proper procedures, including timing to fill a vacancy, then the Utility District Act allows a county mayor to make an appointment of an interim commissioner. The interim commissioner only serves until the board takes the proper action to fill the vacancy. So in the example we started out with, where Mr. Newman's term, expired on April the 30th, the name should have gotten to the county mayor, by say April 1st, but they forgot. Okay. Well, because the statute says 30 days, by delaying in submitting your names, the county mayor, has the ability to go ahead and make an interim appointment to fill the vacancy. Okay? Same thing with the 60 days. Now that appointment person is an interim commissioner, and that commissioner only serves until you as the board undertakes the proper steps to begin the process. Okay. 95% of the time, this is a non-issue, but sometimes it is, because in essence, by delaying in timely submitting your 3 names, you have opened up the possibility for the county mayor to appoint somebody on an interim basis. It truly is interim, okay? So that, you know, I had this scenario within the last month. Someone called me and they were having a bit of a fit with a couple of their board members. And so the first question I asked was, are the commissioners properly appointed? That required us going through a process of trying to figure out whether they were. One commissioner, it was over a year from the time that that commissioner had been reappointed. Not timely. There was another commissioner whose name should have been submitted probably within about a week of the time that we were talking. So I explained to this person, I said, if your board doesn't submit, the 3 names in a week, which they were not going to be able to do because of the 2-week notice provision, I said, you can go sit down with the county mayor and you can get 2 interim commissioners appointed. Because one, you're over a year late in submitting it, and you're not going to be able to timely get the other commission, the names of to fill the other vacancy. And so, the county mayor can appoint 2 interim commissioners. At that point, guess who gets to submit the 3 names of the nominees? The 2 interim commissioners who are a majority now of the board. Okay. So I give that as an example of why it's really important to submit your names timely. As long as you've got a good relationship with your county mayor, you're not going to have an issue with this. But if you don't, you may have an issue.
Don, and it depends, the county mayor, appoints an interim commissioner. If the requirements for residency and the same for that interim commissioner as all.
Yes, the question was, if the county mayor appoints someone in this scenario as an interim, do they still have to meet the qualifications for a utility district commissioner that's in the statute? The answer to that is yes. That person that he or she is appointing still has to either live within the utility district's boundaries or be a customer. All right, see how my time's running. Okay, so it's important to follow the statutory procedure, especially for utility districts, really for the reasons that I just described. Again, if you got a great relationship with your county mayor, you're not going to have an issue. Most of the time, you're not. But guess what? Sometimes these county mayors get at odds with utility districts. And these heads nod. And if they educate themselves, all of a sudden they know more than you do about how to be appointed. Okay? So it's important. Okay. Also, if you fail to follow the statutory procedure to get yourself, whether it's you getting yourself reappointed or somebody new reappointed, it can create an uncertainty as to who's appointed. So, for example, if you submit your 3 names to the county mayor has 21 days to make an appointment. If the commissioner doesn't make, if the county mayor doesn't make the appointment within 21 days, the number 1 person on the list by law automatically fills the vacancy. Okay. So, encourage, depending of who it is, you got to keep up with the date. You got to keep up with that 21 days. Because has it happened where 21 days have passed and somebody has called me and said, Don, the county mayor hasn't signed the order? Who's commissioner? Well, by law, the person that was number 1 on the list is automatically appointed. Guess what? 2 weeks later, the county mayor makes a selection from the 3 names. Okay. Who's the commissioner? The county mayor is going to say the person I appointed is the commissioner. But the law says the person that was number one on the list of 3 nominees by law, has filled the appointment. Okay, so you want, and same thing with the resignation, you want to do things correctly to try to prevent any kind of uncertainty. Okay, and you want to make sure that the board's action's not challenged. Okay, so to finish off, know the beginning and ending dates of your terms. That is not a month, it is not a year, it is a month, date, year. Okay? Do not depend upon the county mayor to know. A big, big mistake. Okay? The county mayors are not going to know. And even if you have a county mayor who's learned, guess what? He's not in office anymore. Somebody else has gotten elected. Okay? Do not depend upon the county mayor to know, because in all likelihood, they're not going to know. And even if they think they know, most of the time they don't know. Okay? So, how can you try to make sure that you know the beginning and ending dates? Okay. What I suggest is whenever you are in the process of selecting the 3 nominees, which you're going to do at a board meeting, you know, you state somewhere in the minutes that, we are nominating these 3 people to fill a vacancy, which is going to begin April 1, 2024 and end 4 years later. Okay. So that there's not any guesswork, because all of a sudden 3 years pass, the office manager that's kept up with that stuff is not there anymore. The commissioner doesn't know the beginning and end dates of the term. You gotta put it in writing somewhere so that somebody knows what the beginning and ending dates are. I suggest that when you submit the names to the county mayor, you do the same thing. You repeat, this is the submission of these 3 names to fill a vacancy which began or begins X date and will end X date. So that's a little form that I've used to sort of submit the names to the county mayor. And it's got on that last paragraph, it sort of states, you, you know, you are hereby, you know, these are these are 3 names we're certifying to fill a vacancy that begins on X date and ends on X date. That way, if there's any uncertainty the next time around, because may not even be dealing with the same county mayor, you've got, you've got a record that actually was submitted in that county mayor's office. So,
That entire prior to his vacancy, well, form somebody to run to the date that he was,
yeah, yeah. So again, if a commissioner retires, I'm going to use the term resigns, okay, then again, that term of office is just from the time of the resignation until the term of the person whose term he's completing. So I'm going to end by just talking real quickly about oaths of office, because I get these questions occasionally. So all public officials, elected, appointed, are supposed to file an oath of office. You all may have never filed an oath of office. You may not even know what I'm talking about, okay? But every public official, including utility district commissioners or the board members of utility board, are supposed to take an oath of office. So, I've not taken an oath of office. What does that mean? Am I still a commissioner? Okay. Failure to take the oath of office does not affect the beginning or ending date of the commissioner's term. The beginning date begins, again, once you're appointed, and depending upon whether it's a term expiration or another method, the failure to do the oath of office does not change the the beginning or ending date of your term. There is a judicial phrase that's used to talk about a commissioner who does not take an oath of office or public official. It says that commissioner is a de facto commissioner until the oath is taken. Votes and actions of the commissioner are valid as to third parties in the public. Okay. So the failure to take the oath of office does not mean you're not a legitimate commissioner. Now, if it's me and I don't like that person, I raise holy heck because the commissioner hasn't signed, the oath of office. But it's a ministerial act. It doesn't really change your term of office, doesn't really make things that you may do before you take the oath, that they're invalid. The penalty for failure to take an oath of office, it's just a Class C misdemeanor. No one ever gets prosecuted for failure to take the oath of office. You're just made to look bad if it suits somebody's purposes. Okay. All right. So that's vacancies, terms. Last thing I want to leave with you. Ultimately, you are the appointed commissioner or you are the appointed board member. It's your responsibility to know the beginning date and the ending date of your term. It's fine to rely upon someone in your office to do that. But you know what? If there's a problem, it's your problem, not theirs. Okay. So if you don't know what the beginning date and ending date of your term is, you need to go find out. And if someone in your office can't tell you what it is, it's not good. Call me. I'll try to help you work through it. And anyway, so that's terms. And thank you for listening. We'll take about, oh, I've got a question here. The question is, does the county mayor have to submit the person that the county mayor chooses to the county commission for approval? The answer to that question is no. Okay. Have there been some utility districts and county mayors who have done that as a matter of course? The answer to that is yes. Why they started that process, I don't know. And it's really hard to stop it once you do it voluntarily. But that's something that's not required by the statute. But, right. Yeah. So if it's me, and I'm looking at this practically, fine. If he wants to submit it to the county commission, let he or she submit it to the county commission. And as long as they say okay, you don't have a problem. But if they don't say okay, legally, it was not required to be done to start with.
If you're a commissioner and you're elected by the vote, do you have to nominate three people to replace you
Yeah.
next term?
Yeah. The question is, this commissioner is at a is a utility district where the commissioners are elected. They are not appointed. So do they have to create a ballot that has 3 names on it? The answer to that is no. And every one of these utility districts that has to elect fill your vacancies by election of the customers, that's been done by a specific act of the legislature that typically only applies in your county. Sometimes it applies to just one utility. And the election procedures are not exactly the same for every utility district that the legislature said you have to elect your customers. So when I get a question like that, it's like, what county are you in? Let me look up the particular section of the code that deals with you because I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Because there's probably 6 or 7 statutes still on the books that say utility districts in Franklin County have to elect their customers. And it will say what the process is. But I'm not aware of any of them that require that you have 3 names. Okay. They may not say how many names you have. Some of them just say you have to have a board meeting and you nominate people you want. Some of them basically say customers can nominate. So if you are an elected board, a lot of what I just said doesn't apply to you. Why? Because the legislature has said your vacancies are going to be filled by the vote of the customers, and it describes how that election is supposed to happen. Does it do a very good job of explaining the ins and outs of how the election is supposed to happen? No, it doesn't. But a lot of times it does have the parameters in there that you have to follow. Okay, thank y'all. We'll take about a 10-minute break. Ups.